Coffee. And also, Hamster versus MoonHunter, Part 2. In the first part, MoonHunter blew me away with anchors and proxy stockades. What will we see this time? We're back on Repulsion for this one. All of the matches were played on Repulsion. And this time, indeed, Hamster taking his opponent a little more seriously, although having some kerfluffles with his Droleths there. He is in the top right. Is that Midnight Green? Yes. And, of course, the Alice Blue Terran. It's MoonHunter. I saw his camera hotkeys, or camera positions, change over here. I feel like he is using camera hotkeys for that. And I know that at least... I mean, obviously that's a Brood War thing, but it's also a Starcraft 2 thing. I've noticed that people, like in Uthermal's videos and stuff, he often ends up, like, camera hotkeying out of habit, like his natural and third and stuff. I wonder if that's something that MoonHunter is also doing. Again, I can't shake the suspicion that this man has some tricks up his sleeve, but he's going to play more standard. I don't know if it's because he knows that Hamster is a Zerg main, or if it's because he's just gonna, he's like, I've used my cheese, I gotta play standard now. And let's be honest, his play did leave some things to be desired. He could have had more Masons, he could have expanded behind the cheese, he could have put down a single Watchdog to deter any sort of vassal play, or moved his anchor in the mineral line, because then you wouldn't really be able to do too much. He is gonna go for a Fulcrum first, which is obviously gonna be a heck of a bit slower than the stockades as far as when it hits. Since this is on release, by the way, you can't really like easily pivot into scrapyard tech, right? Like we didn't make it. It wasn't. We buffed that sort of play pattern in pre-release as opposed to the situation for release. So anyway, all that to be said, the first round of units out of Hamster is going to be a pair of Zethra-Cores, as he has gone for a 9-pool. I'm not sure about the 9-pool strat. As far as like whether it lands more on the economic or aggressive side. But the way that Hamster is rolling it right now, he's actually only got, the one pair of Quasis coming, as well as, of course, the one pair of Zeths that are already out and moving across the map. And this larva is not yet turning into anything because, of course, he went for a macro hatch in the base. So that's interesting. And the first unit out of the Fulcrum is the Cyclops. Versus Zeths, they aren't too bad. And I think they're a little bit better versus Quasis because your instinct isn't always to micro into the Terran army as a Quasilisk. Whereas for Zeths, they're a little bit better. And the second Quasilisk, or second Cyclops is on the way. There's going to need to be some micro here, but or maybe not, because Hamster will just go ahead and charge in and use this as an opportunity to scout. But he definitely can't get any damage dealt, really. Going to go ahead and attack this one. And yeah, there you go. It's dead. Now, will MoonHunter be aware of the mechanic where you can stand over burrowed units? That's a question. I don't know how aggressively he's watched some of these videos. Quasilisk's just scouting around. Obviously, when you get cheesed first, you're like, oh my god, is he proxying me somewhere? What's happening? But, I actually don't know how often Fulcrum has been deployed against Hamster. Like, is Fulcrum first a thing that he's seen that much of? Has he played against Cyclopses that much? This Zethra-Core in the back line here. And again, for those who are not initiated, you can stand on burrowed units to reveal them. So you don't always know exactly where they are, but you can move your, a worker over here or something like that. There is a Watchdog coming this time around, so actually this play looks a lot more measured from MoonHunter. He might be a little bit slower or unoptimized than some of the players you might be used to seeing. He's definitely doing a different strat than you might be used to seeing with the Cyclops. But I think, okay, the Quasilisks on this patch are faster, but they have 0 armor pen. So Cyclops can absolutely run roughshod over them if microed well. And you can see here the delayed burst damage of the Cyclops is helping out massively there. So trading 1 Cyclops for 6 Quasilisks is absolutely good. But there's no workers at the natural right now. So we have to keep that in mind as well. Because when you think about it in those terms, it's like, okay, what are you really going to be dealing with? And it looks like it's going to be another 1-base push with 3 Fulcrums. It's 2 of them pumping Cyclops the whole way through. Maybe MoonHunter really is a man after my own heart, because I've been talking about Cyclops and how I think they're pretty good for a while now. And he's actually sort of trying to demonstrate that. Now, the micro is, again, losing out a little bit of DPS or health on the Cyclops, but he's pushing back the Quasilisks pretty well. We do have an Ovileth out here. I don't know if that's to transfer the Kagrin over to defend this natural. It looks like that's what it's going to be for. Because a Circuith is a lot harder for a Cyclops to deal with, as you might have guessed. Instead, it looks like the Ovileth is going to be moving across the map to turn it over here. The Zethra-Core did attack and got killed by Masons, and revealed itself there. A third Cyclops has arrived, 2 more on the way pretty close by. We have a host of Zeths. This army should be more than enough to deal with this, and MoonHunter is not responding fairly quickly, so in just a blink of an eye, a lot of his units are indeed dead. But hey, they left behind a lot of damage fields that are actually going to do a lot of damage there. Even the last shot killing yet another Quasilisk. So the standing army is not there for a counterattack, and he's forced a lot of combat units when he really, at this point, Hamster wanted to be making Droleths, especially since he used one extra one for this Kagrant and a larva for the Ovileth. So he's going to go ahead and unload it. The Watchdog will remind him that, hey, I've got this thing here, so maybe I should... No, he's not going to take it out. He will go ahead and attack it. There are 2 Goliaths on the way, as well as the 4 Cyclops on the front line. This Kagrant is almost done, but it's not turned into a Circuit just yet. So we're kind of watching on multiple fronts here. That one did end up dying. I didn't catch if it was canceled or not, but it's not super consequential. It's a difference of like... Well, I guess you get like 33 minerals back or something like that. Or it's not quite that. It might be 37 or something. Anyway, the Cyclops are not going to attack in a timing that would be beneficial to them. Goliaths are on the way, marching across. We have another Goliath. We've got... more workers this time around for MoonHunter, although he is cutting pretty hard here at this stage. And, of course, is behind his Zerg opponent. I shouldn't say, of course, like that's expected. But because he's cutting and because he's not interested in building any more of them, he's starting to do that now. Yeah, he's absolutely going to be behind economically. I do feel like even though his early aggression has been pretty good and caught Hamster off guard, this match, not only, I think Hamster is like a fairly solid Zerg at this point. I mean, he's taken a game off of Nablime. He's looked competitive versus Shambler. To me, I think he's going to be okay here. I'm allergic to Terrans walking into circuits, apparently. But don't worry. The Goliaths are here to frontline. And they can do some pretty good damage here. With this number, right, especially with the Quasilisk standing guard around the circuit to accept the damage from the Cyclops, this absolutely can turn into a pretty good hit. And again, if Hamster survives, I feel like he's going to be in a good situation. But he's not pulling his workers. He is indeed making Lakissilisks, which as soon as they burrow should be in a pretty good spot. More units coming up over here. And look at this. MoonHunter is aware that you can step on them. However, I think this is doing a lot of extra damage, and one of these Goliaths is not even attacking. So, okay, both Lakissilisks down. Kagrant's done. They can mutate into circuits. More Goliaths on the way, or at least one extra Goliath has shown up. And at this point, the Cyclops crowd control is essentially dwindling here. There's only Goliaths. We have some Cyclops sort of lingering back there. And now he has to fall back because the circuit, at least one circuit is done. Another one looks like it was either canceled or attacked. Maybe it was attacked enough to be canceled, it looks like, is what happened there. So Hamster was a little bit worried about a focus fire. Now, he could still lose his Hatcheros, right? Because there's not really any defenses over here. So, yeah, it looks like he's going to go ahead and cede this base. And at this point, the worker situation has turned to relatively even-keeled situations there, as far as the worker count is concerned. Now, I'm not sure how MoonHunter is going to try to break this, because the double circuit... Plus, potential Lakissilisks if, yeah, there's 2 more coming. Yeah, that seems like it's essentially unbreakable. At this point, the solution should be expand behind it. You can maybe add a star pad to try to elevator your units up, but that's not MoonHunter's jam, it looks like right now. And we have double Lakissilis drop. That's a little ballsy. That's a little ballsy. He's also broken the grid, it looks like, which is a classic move you can sometimes do with Ovileths. We'll have to look into fixing that. Or maybe we already did fix that, because this is release. I have to keep reminding myself. Hamster could go for another macro hatch. He's getting a Hydrith in right now, adding more workers to his queue, adding some Zeths as well, which can turn into Vorvs. Now, the double Lakissilis drop could do a number on him, but MoonHunter actually does have some units back at home. And the Watchdog, it doesn't provide detection in Cosmonic Brood War, unlike the missile turret, but it will at least zone away the Ovileths from being able to come in and like evacuate the Lakissilisks or anything like that. So a lot of it is going to depend on that response time here. And it looks like actually he's a little bit further ahead. And yeah, one of these Lakissilisks is unlikely to be able to go anywhere. On top of that, the other Lakissilis couldn't even unload because the Ovileth moved over impassable terrain when it was given the unload order, it looks like. So you didn't really even have a good shout there. So Hamster is once again going to try to... He's actually secured some of the Kagra down here, it looks like, which is kind of cute because like his Kagrant finished over here or whatever. Or maybe... Actually, I don't really know how that works exactly, but yeah, that is a situation where he's got a little bit of a front line there where he can put down static defense on the low ground. That's pretty legit. Now, the other Lakissilis did show up over here, and it'll deal some customary damage to the Cyclopses, but it will be taken care of. Another seldom known effect is that the lobotomy mine will reveal burrowed units. So Just something to keep in mind. Now, this is a pretty big army here for Hamster, and with the Zoristaleth and the Hydras for burst damage onto the armored targets like the Goliaths, he's actually using all of the tier 1 pretty well. And there weren't that many Cyclopses here, so he wasn't really able to deal with the large numbers of units there. I think all the Cyclopses might have even been focused down there, or at least most of them, in the early stages of the game. So the containment is broken, and the natural will be reestablished, and Hamster is looking tenacious at the very least. We don't have any mine layouts yet. He's actually surrounded his vultures with Cyclops, so he's going to have to adjust his units. He's spending a lot of AP. I'm trying to do that right now. 600 minerals, not as much gas. Could be harvesting a little bit more aggressively, like from the natural and stuff. Zoristaleth is rather weak, but it's about half HP, right? So we're not 100% sure about that one. But there you go. A stun has been impacted, and that will allow the Zoristaleth to be picked off. You can thank the lobotomy mine for that. On pre-release, the lobotomy mine lasts for, the stun is for 3 seconds, and the slow is for 3 seconds instead of 2 of each. And the slow is guaranteed, so even if you kill the lobotomy mine, it will still slow everybody near it, which I think is going to be a pretty effective little burst there. So we'll see about that. Looks like he's fairly defensible at this point. Yeah, MoonHunter is looking all right. This game is... I don't know how many games they actually played versus how many of them have been submitted for casting. So I think maybe there's even gaps between the replays here where it's like this game was played 2 games after the cheese as opposed to the very next game or something, you know. I'm not 100% sure, but it looks like there's going to be a move out. Pretty strong, scary-looking mech army. There is a cleric sort of waypointing after them. A stockade and a vestry were constructed. And yeah, I'm still waiting for when the tier 2 is coming, but it looks like it's going to be a ways off. Second macro hatch being added to the natural, I should say second hatch, that is a macro hatch. And there's a third hatch that is also a macro hatch. So there's a total of 5 hatches right now coming online here for Hamster, which is going to be very important. He does have access to all 3 of the tech structures. So he has access to all 9 of his tier 1 tech units as far as military goes. And we'll have to see what he ends up doing. Actually, he's also built the Ovaleth, right? So it feels like he's really using all of the tier 1 tech that Zerg have. He made a Spraith, he made a bunch of circuits. So we'll see what he can end up doing. Now, I don't know how easy it will be for MoonHunter to get into a situation where he can break this army, but remember the Cyclopses are dealing consistent damage to the backline throughout that entire fight where they were not being focused down. So all of the Hydras ended up getting busted pretty heavily here. And the Cyclopses are continuing to just rain hellfire down upon these units. So one of the circuits is down. The other one is being focused in the meantime, and that is going to do it for the natural. More Hydras are being hatched. You can maybe move some of them over here, remorphing that Kagrin, or trying to, but it will be taken care of. And this Cyclops count has grown so tremendously that even the Hydras are falling like the Quasis. A lot of the units in the natural are also being popped. Hamster is going to call GG. The 3 Fulcrum Cyclops-infused mech push is just a little bit too much. Honestly, MoonHunter didn't even need the clerics in that fight. And that is a situation where I definitely don't think anybody's played that kind of style against Hamster. So he's getting a little bit of ZVT mech experience. And happy to see MoonHunter find success with a conventional build. Well, it's a little unconventional compared to what we're used to. But I'm happy to see him find success in a build that wasn't entirely cheese. He showed better fundamentals that game. I was a little unsure about his ability to micro and multitask and stuff. But hey, he did a pretty good job there. Let's see what happens in game number 3, which is the second game of this particular cast over in just a moment. As promised, we are back, and this time Hamster will be Protoss, playing this one against the Terran of MoonHunter. The Protoss is the royal blue in the top right, and the yellow bottom left is, of course, MoonHunter's Terran. So this is the same spawns that we had in the previous match, but obviously this is not Zerg. I don't know if Hamster was going random this time or if he elected to go Protoss and wanted a little bit more practice. Really interesting stuff. Again, they might have played a number of other matches that didn't get recorded. It would be really funny if Hamster won all of the matches that he didn't submit, and the ones he did submit, because he was the one to submit these, were actually the ones that made MoonHunter look really good or something. So it's pretty funny there. I'm not 100% sure that that's the case, but we'll see. Now, MoonHunter looks like he's going to be going for Fulcrums again. I'm just basing that off of his early gas harvesting. But he also has a lot of minerals in the bank, so maybe he'll go for a stockade first and then follow it up with a fulcrum. Normally you would end up having a second guy on gas if you wanted the 50 gas for the fulcrum. It's 200 minerals, 50 gas, so it's a fairly expensive move. And it looks like, yeah, it will be a stockade first, and that will allow him to, maybe he's going to use the gas for a vestry or a Cyprian or something like that. Or maybe he'll just go for something completely different. We don't know what he's up to. We don't know what he's really doing, So I'm interested. I'm interested. You know, I mentioned Euthermal when I was talking about Starcraft 2 stuff in the previous cast or in the previous match, and I feel like Euthermal is the kind of guy where if he caught wind of CMBW and he was able to actually play it and try it, and he went through and he fucked around and he saw all the different strategies you could do, that's the kind of shit that it seems like he would appreciate. You know, obviously it's not StarCraft 2, so you have to control your units a bit differently. But I think it's interesting that there's so many different openers that you can do as all of the races, thanks to the benefit of having such a vast tech tree, right? Now the Fulcrum is coming on behalf of the Stockade here, and of course the Scribe will tickle the Mason, but only once. Just a little love tap. Drakiden coming out from the Gateway. And what we should actually see out of the one gate toss is try to send your first unit across the map to attack and aggress and do some other things, and just to put your opponent off kilt a little bit while you take your natural. That's usually the sort of agreed upon play that we normally see. But Hamster could go for a 2-gate opener and be more aggressive. I feel like it would have already come by now. He's banking a decent amount of minerals. So to me, it seems like he's actually going to go for a second Drakiden and then go for an expand behind it. But he's playing a little bit timidly. He's not sending his first unit immediately across the map. This is already giving enough time for the Scrapyard to come out. So this is interesting. I think maybe what we end up seeing here is like Shaman Blackjack Maverick or something. That could be kind of interesting, but we'll see. This is just me speculating. I feel like the Blackjacks coming out here could be doing some pretty good heavy hitting. They do have the armor pen to deal more damage to the Drakiden. I think it's 1, but it might be 2. If it's 2, it's even better for dealing with Drakidens and stuff. So you absolutely could see, though, as like sort of a pseudo replacement to the Maverick in this particular matchup, right? But you can still make the Mavericks. You can stim them. You can reposition them. It looks like Hamster's going to move out with double Drakiden. Maybe when he saw the Fulcrum, he might have suspected a fast Vulture. And there will be a second Stockade added on over here. So, interesting. It's going to be Bio Blackjack. That seems to be the case. Dude, I like the idea that, people like MoonHunter exist and are going to come in here and try to experiment with different strategies and see what they can do. They've maybe played against the AI and developed their own meta, and then they're unleashing it upon players. And until they adapt to it, until they think about like what the response can be, maybe the AI meta, the stuff that gave you success versus AI, can even be good against high-level players in that sense. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But the Drakidens are on the way. A double Blackjack, again, we can confirm it is 2 armor pen, so they'll be dealing full damage with every shot to the Drakidens, regardless of if any Harakans are rending their armor or not. One Drakiden has already lost all of its shields, but it will go ahead and start trading pretty adequately versus the Masons, the Mavericks, rather. Imagine Masons. Blackjacks are keeping the zoning tool there. They move a little bit faster than Mavericks when the Mavericks are not stimmed, but they're kind of mixed in the group, right? So they'll be stutter stepped a little bit. Now, trying to use the cliff advantage to his advantage. In fact, a Hierophant on the way, but he doesn't really have too many units. And yeah, at this point, Blackjacks crack off a couple of shots, and yeah, it's looking like the Drakidens need to fall back. Now, there's some more Mavericks and more Blackjacks sort of waypointing across the map. We are seeing this like one base aggro style that we don't normally see out of Terrans, so I'll be really interested in seeing how that one scales into the future. And that's the sort of thing, right? It's like the games where Hamster, like the last game where Hamster was playing as his main race, Zerg, he's played against Nablime, who's more passive. He might have played against other Terrans who are also more passive and play the matchup the way it's meant to be played, air quotes. Meanwhile, MoonHunter's out here like, nah, I'm just going to like waypoint 3 Fulcrum units. 3 Fulcrums worth of units into your base every rotation. So it looks like there will be an engagement in the middle of the map here. No cliff advantage to be found for either player, and the Hierophant is sort of soaking up a lot of that early damage despite not providing that much. Meanwhile, the Blackjacks are trying to dish out a bunch. One Drakiden will fall. It feels like Hamster could try to take this fight, but unfortunately, he flubs the micro a little bit here and there were more reinforcements coming, it has to be said, so maybe he's like aware of that. No Vestry just yet for either Stockade, so any wounded units you see here are absolutely permanent in that sense. We have a second Warden coming down at the natural. The pylon is in a very defensive position, but this place could get muscled down depending on the situation. Now, Blackjacks, the more damage they take, the less attack rate and movement speed they have. So that's a very important point to note. It's like an inverse stim pack, right? Now, the Drakidens are kind of getting caught up here. That one getting path found into death, you could say. This Warden is not long for this world, the one that's warping in, I think. But a little bit of split forces here, right? And 3 very healthy Drakidens are going to mop up this force. So maybe the Warden ends up getting focused down. It looks like that will be the case. No, it's allowed to finish with 15 health. Just a couple of shots from the Mavericks and the one Blackjack shot, I think, would have done it. But not actually going to happen. And yeah, an attempted contain is going to be put up here, but I'm not so sure that it will be super successful, right? When you're trying to contain a gateway player who's adding a 3rd gateway, producing double Drakiden with every rotation, you can put your Mavericks in however many Mavericks you want. I don't think it's going to end up working out. Now, if you had like double Fulcrum producing Blackjacks, that could be a little bit different, but that's a little bit, again, it's a little bit harder to get to on release compared to pre-release. And also, at the same time, your opponent has an expansion, very similar to the Zerg game, but this time around, Hamster has way more economy because he's got way more workers. So no Expo coming out here, much stronger units for a general A move. This is good positional gameplay here from MoonHunter to use the cliff advantage, and Hamster feels like he's, it feels like he's overly worried about stuff like that, and he's kiting backwards when he has, by far, the superior firepower. You could just A move and win this. You know, yeah, you'd lose some units and stuff, but you absolutely could just A move and win this. So fourth stockade nearing completion. That will immediately start producing Mavericks as well that are going to continue waypointing across the map. And we do obviously have the Blackjacks. Lots of minerals being leveraged here. And just the one guy on gas. So it's full. It's double saturation on that situation there. And now, yeah, the high ground units are going to get bopped. So they're essentially consigned to death. I think at this point, MoonHunter, he's overestimated the power of his units and or underestimated how powerful Mass Dracodon can be versus units like this that have no way of sort of disenchanting them, right? Because they are very empowered units. One more shot would have killed that Dracodon, but unfortunately he doesn't end up getting it. A little bit heartbreaking here. And yeah, he's going to need to start hitting the panic stations, maybe throw down a couple of anchors, and position his units a little bit more defensively, start recalling some of them. Another Maverick will walk to its death. One more shot. One more shot, Hamster! Oh, firing squad. There it is. Who knows which one actually killed him. I mean, you could slow down the replay and find out. But Stargate coming out in the main. That's an interesting permutation here. Maybe expecting anchors, so you can build Lanifex, formerly Corsairs, and activate Disruption Field, formerly Disruption Web. Yes, I even changed one letter, or one word of Disruption Web. That's how deep the renames go. Now, this Dracodon, this trio here is a little bit of an overextension, but it might bait MoonHunter to move more of his units over here. However, the sheer number of bio, I mean, we've seen this already. Shambler versus Nablime, the PVT practice ahead of the grand final of Ascension 5. It did not end well for the bio, but the Blackjacks might be a wrinkle that, you know, maybe Hamster's not prepared for. I still feel like he could just A-move and win. He is taking a third base. At this point, the Terran is very, very far behind. No expansion in sight. And Hamster has so much money, only now starting to spend some of it. He does have a host of 6 Dracodons on the way, another Warden in the main, fearing drops, an Exemplar on the way as well. You can use that to siege, you can use that to kill Infinity Mavericks, as you might have guessed. We'll take a look at the stats in a second here. Another push out. Yeah, okay, the reinforcements were a little bit lackluster here because the waypoints were going in the wrong direction. But the Exemplar has 100 shields, 140 HP, 3 armor. So Mavericks are going to deal a flat 3 damage to them and take so long to kill them. This is definitely where you would want to see, like, Goliaths to try to deal with those. Although, again, the Exemplar has pretty good range, right? I think it's equivalent range to the Goliath anti-air attack. So, yeah, that sounds about right. So depending on where you decide to attack, like you could try to abuse ledges like this and stuff. You could obviously try to abuse any sort of area of cliff differential and anything like that. Just to see if you can sort of attack them. Similar to, like, if people are familiar from the Brood War days, carriers versus Goliaths in a similar way, right? It's just like a smaller scale because you can get access to it a little bit earlier in the game. A little bit earlier in the game. Finally taking an expansion. It does feel like Hamster has had kill pressure for a very long period of time. With his Exemplar coming, he can definitely do some damage to this Bio Ball. Leading with a very wounded Dracodon, leading with 2 very wounded Dracodons, in fact, almost leading with 3 very wounded Dracodons, and will in fact lose 4 Dracodons. Maybe make it 5, but obviously the Exemplar has been hitting ridiculous amounts of pot shots this entire time, and so yeah, losing a 5th Dracodon is not really the end of the world there. He's got a 2nd Exemplar coming. Do we see any Watchdogs? We have an Anchor coming. No Watchdogs at all. Watchdogs do outrange the Exemplar, but 2 of them can burn down a single one, and they deal splash, so you can't really even repair them with Masons. So even that is kind of like a last-ditch, like, desperate effort while you try to get Goliaths out. And there are no Goliaths coming. There's some Cyprians coming, which, okay, they don't get damage reduced for fighting Dracodons, but they don't penetrate them. So it's a little bit awkward there, and nothing in the Anchor. I think this is going to be GG, and Hamster will claw back 1 win in this 3-game series as far as the matches that were sent at me. I appreciate MoonHunter's aggressive style. In this case, I think he wasn't expecting the bio there. No GG even for him. Maybe feeling like, oh shit, Protoss only won because they got OP units or something. But hey, I appreciate that he was able to really entertain us with the first game of the game that was released, 2 days ago now. That cast over is going to go down in history. It is really once in a lifetime. Double stockade into ridiculous amounts of anchor silliness. And then, honestly, impressed with the Fulcrum play versus Zerg in the second match. Obviously, that was the one that we cast before this. So yeah, he might have had a meta misread here. I'm not expecting the Draconins to be able to hold out. Hamster definitely could have killed him a lot sooner as well. But nonetheless, that's our cast over for today. Join us for tomorrow. We're going to go back to that Shambler Sublime series, or maybe cast some other mystery thing. It really depends. We'll see. Mysterious meat, perhaps? I think so. Let's take a look at the score screen and get ourselves out of here. Thanks for watching.